The following is a basic owner's operation and maintenance instruction narrative for the power cart and hammer mill used to process cassava. We will start by identifying all of the major pieces of equipment. The power cart consists mainly of two major components: a 10 horsepower diesel engine with electric or manual start, and a detachable hammer mill with belt drive, replaceable screens, and safety grate. The second piece of equipment shown is the press used to remove the excess water and starch from the cassava mash produced from the hammer mill. The third piece of equipment shown to the far right is a large roasting pan on top of a roasting oven used to dry and roast the cassava cake coming from the press to create a product called Gary. Next, we will proceed with the operation of the hammer mill and the diesel engine. This operation should include the following steps. First, open the mill and assure that the proper screen is in place. It is suggested that we start with the 1/4 inch for the cassava process. The next step is to properly adjust the drive belt tension. And in order to do this, we first have to loosen the adjuster handle locking plate by turning it clockwise. Next, we adjust the drive belt tension by turning the adjuster handle located below the discharge chute. We turn it counterclockwise to loosen and clockwise to tighten. The belt tension should be checked in the middle for a maximum 1/2 inch deflection with moderate finger pressure. Also, the two pulleys should be checked with the belt on to assure proper alignment. The next step is to secure the adjuster handle by turning the locking plate counterclockwise. Next, we attach the collection bag to the end of the discharge chute. Now we perform the final safety check. We check the safety shields to be sure they're in place. We close by lifting and rotating. We check the safety latch to be sure it's secure. And we check the hopper safety grate to be sure it's closed. The hammer mill is now ready for operation. We will now prepare the engine for operation. This should include the following steps. First, check the fuel level. Open the fuel tank by removing the fuel cap, then remove the fuel filter screen and clean as needed. Then replace the fuel filter. Add clean diesel fuel as needed and replace the cap. Then check oil level. Remove oil level stick and assure proper level. Add 1540 oil as needed and replace oil level stick. Next, we check the air filters. We remove the metal cover, remove the foam and air filter, and clean as needed. We then replace the air filter and the foam filter and the cover. We check these filters weekly and clean as necessary. We are now ready to start the engine. We first turn the fuel switch on by moving it from the horizontal position to a vertical position. Now we set the throttle knob to 3/4 setting. Then we press the compression release lever down. Then we turn the starter switch to the on position and the engine should start. If a battery is not available for electric start, use the hand pull cord to start. Follow the same ready-to-start procedure as shown, and in place of the starter switch, use the pull cord as follows. Pull slowly until resistance is felt. Then release cord back into its housing. Push compression release lever down and make a full, strong pull to start. The speed of the engine can be regulated with the throttle knob as desired. The engine should be able to be run at 1/2 throttle to process cassava to save on fuel. If the engine will not start, refer to the owner's manual. We will now address the use of the equipment already shown to process the cassava root, starting with the hammer mill. We start with a quantity of cassava root that has been peeled and cut into 3-inch to 4-inch sections. These sections are placed into the top of the hammer mill hopper with the hopper opening in the closed position. The next step is to perform all the safety checks previously outlined. After that, be sure that the collection bag is secure and in place at the end of the discharge chute. We now start the engine as previously outlined and move the hopper opening to a position that provides the desired feed rate of the cassava root. You will notice the cassava being discharged in a very wet mash state. After all the raw cassava root is through the hammer mill, stop the engine. Open the hammer mill and clean out all of the residual cassava and place it into the collection bag. It is important to note that a fermentation period takes place by allowing the bags to sit for 24 to 72 hours, with the exact time being determined by local custom or requirements based on desired taste and history. Be sure that a pan is placed under the bags during this period to collect the liquid containing starch. We now take the newly bagged cassava mash and place it into the press after the fermentation period. The press should be operated with a grate on top and one between the bags. The video shows only one bag, but if 2 bags were shown, no grate would be needed on the bottom. Put lubricating oil in the oil cups on the bottom of the screw and on the main beam where the screw goes through. Be very careful to be sure to use only edible vegetable oil. After the press is loaded with bags of the product, with the grates between the bags, the press screw needs to be turned down tight to press the liquid out of the product. The product needs to be in the press for 30 minutes or more, and the screw needs to be turned down periodically to keep the press tight. Be sure that a collection plate is placed beneath the press to receive the water and starch mixture that is being pressed out of the mash. This starch product can be collected and sold on the local market. The cakes of pressed cassava can be run through the hammer mill again with a 1/2 inch screen size to break up the clumps to be more easily roasted on the oven. We will now discuss the use of the oven. The final step of the process is to roast this fine cassava product in the roasting pan. This video shows a roasting pan sitting on the top of a modular built firebox that can be easily disassembled for shipping. The final product after being roasted is called Gary. This final roasting process will not be shown as part of this video. During the roasting process, the cassava could be run through the mill with even smaller screens, such as 3/8 inch or 1/4 inch, and placed back on the oven. If a fine flour product is desired, a grinder as shown can be used, being sure, however, that the product needs to be cooled before going through the grinder again. We will now address equipment maintenance issues, starting with the hammer mill. It is very important that the mill be properly cleaned after each use, either with a water hose or with water buckets as shown. It is important to inspect the hammers or flailers for wear. See an example of a worn hammer here. Each hammer can be unbolted and rotated up to 4 times to use all 4 cutting edges. Also, the long rod upon which the hammers are mounted should be periodically inspected for wear. It is important to grease the 2 hammer mill main bearings every 40 hours of use. It is also important to check general condition of the hammer mill on a daily basis to ensure proper operation. If any unusual sounds are heard during the operation, stop the engine and check for any loose parts or areas that are wearing unnecessarily, which would be indicated by a bright metal wear mark. Let's now look at the diesel engine. First, we check oil level and check for any oil leaks daily before use. Change oil after the first 20 hours of operation and every 100 hours after that by using the following steps. Remove oil level stick. Place drain pan under drain plug. Remove drain plug and drain oil. Remove and clean oil filter screen with diesel fuel every 500 hours of operation. Replace oil filter and oil drain plug and fill the 10 horsepower engine with 1.65 liters or 1.75 quarts of 1540 oil. Fill until the oil backs out of the fill port. Check air filter weekly, more frequently in dusty environments, and clean the outer foam element of the air filter with soap and water as needed. Always use clean, water-free diesel fuel when refueling. We will now look at a few additional pieces of equipment that are available to be used on the power cart. First, we'll show how the hammer mill can be converted to a threshing machine for wheat, oats, barley, rice, and millet. We start by removing the hopper section of the hammer mill by opening it and removing the large connection pin. The hopper section can then be removed. Then the discharge chute is removed by removing the 2 holding pins. The lower section of the threshing machine is attached where the chute has been removed. The upper section of the threshing machine is then positioned where the hopper section of the hammer mill was removed. Other equipment that is available to be used with the power cart are shown here. The water pump, the electric generator, the hydraulic power unit, and an air compressor that is not shown is also available. It's important to note that the equipment already shown is relatively easy to change. Replacement of the hammer mill with an electric generator. As an example, simply open the main safety shield, Turn adjustment handle counterclockwise to loosen adjusting screw. Push equipment back slightly and twist sideways to remove. Reverse previous steps to install new equipment.